I didn't want to be homeless, but it happened. And I could not get out of it because I didn't have a job that can help me pay the rent in New York. Um, Job. You have to make good money here or you need some type of assistance. As a black person, we call the minority when you poor, right? So I was poor and my children, when you have children, they help you more in the United States. But now, at this time, my children was removed from my custody, and it was just me on the budget. And that was different too for me to just have me on my budget with no kids. It left me broke because the system take care of families. The system up here in New York looks out for single parents and their children, which was women. It wasn't men's. We wasn't co-parenting at this time. It was so different because it was new when my children's father, he got custody. I know maybe to some girls and to some people, you're like, oh, that's normal. But it wasn't normal back in the days. Most of the kids stood with single parent moms. Most black kids in America are raised by, now I can't say most of them because I don't know. I just know my area, where I came from. The majority of people in my area, majority are single black American women, and they are single parents, The majority of them are, and they had a household. So when I became homeless, it was so different for me. First of all, not living in the black community, but it's a different kind of poor when you don't have children on your budget because the city helps out single parents when they have kids. But here it is, I don't have any children on my budget, and I'm black and I'm poor. I don't have work experience because I was an at-home mom that I loved being. So at that time I was saying, well, my kids is able to go to school, then I will go back to school. But things didn't work out as I planned. I got sidetracked and I became homeless. So now I'm living in the world without my children. I'm living in a world without my kids. Once I became the only person on my budget, the city changed. They made it adaptable for a person like me. Some of you may want to know what took me so long to get an apartment. Well, first of all, when you broke, you have to wait for the city when you don't have no job. But if your job don't pay as well, or if in the case you're not working, you lose your job and you may have to become homeless, well, you have to depend and wait on the shelter to find you housing. And at that time, the shelter didn't find housing so quickly for people. The shelter just had all those girls just sitting inside the shelter, And I'm like sitting, like living inside the shelter. And the New York City wasn't building housing enough for homeless people. And like I said, the city went in transition because I was used. Single parents was women. We mainly had children, but now here I am. I don't have any children on my budget, so it was harder to find housing because the housing for the poor people didn't cater to one person. They catered to families. You have to have a kid or two or more. So I'm just one person, and New York City housing didn't cater to one person. And so that was one thing that kept me from getting housing. It was the format of how the government deals with someone who's poor. So we went through a lot of different changes to get to the point of the building that I got in. Because the building that I moved in was a brand new building. And the building was underneath an SRO. That means a single room occupancy. And throughout the time I was homeless, I heard them speak on SROs. And some SROs, you have to share the common space, they call. And the common spaces are the bathroom, the living room, and the kitchen. So basically, let's say if there is a 7-bedroom apartment, we all have our own room, who's strangers, and we share the living room and the kitchen and the bathroom. Because I have been to a building like that underneath an SRO. And I didn't stay there very long. But that experience was something else because nobody cleaned. So I always had to clean the kitchen before I cooked for myself. No one really wiped the stove, or, the stove was so dirty and I couldn't cook the oven and on top of the stove. It had to be clean. So before I cooked, I always had to clean. And when I moved in, I had to take an hour or so to clean the oven and clean up the kitchen too, So in that unit there, it was also in the Bronx. And how many bedrooms was, I think on the 3rd or 2nd floor. And that building it was funny too, because everybody on each floor had a different vibe. Like one floor in that building, everybody cooked for each other, whatever. My floor was more of everybody was just doing their own thing, And I cleaned the bathroom and I cleaned the slop room. And I cleaned the floors, throughout the whole unit. It was one big door. It was a building. You walk up the steps and there's one big door. And when you walk in, there was several rooms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe like six rooms. And they had six or 8 rooms, something like that. And they had 2 bathrooms. And I didn't have to, but when I wanted to use the bathroom, I had to clean it because I'm not going to use the bathroom and it's not clean. So, that place, I didn't stay very long, but I did have my own room. And every room, you have your own key to come into your room. And the refrigerator is a shared refrigerator for everybody on that floor. So that's what you call a single room occupancy. And that was a new way of living for me as an American. As an American, that was totally a new way for me to live. And they would take girls on interviews. You had to interview to live in an SRO. And it took a while before the shelter came up, or before the city came up with an idea of calling something an SRO, because like I said, it was the city, New York City. The city was catering to single parents raising their kids. Right now, we went through a lot of different transitions. We went through a lot of different transitions before the city came up with SROs. When the city came up with SROs, single room occupancy, they also had developed within the shelter system a housing specialist. I don't think the housing specialist was there. And if the housing specialist was there, they didn't have no place to send us, right? Because I don't recall ever seen a housing specialist till maybe after I done did like 10 years or something like that, right? So I finally got to meet a housing specialist, and I think that job title was new. It was created maybe about 3 years before I had to, or 2 years before I walked through the door, and their door. So the housing specialist was the one who found the SRO, and they had a room for me they had a room for me to apply for. So how it went down that day is they had to drive me there, right? And I had to be interviewed for the room. Now, mind you, so many shelters is going to the same interview with their clients, right? So it's a 50-50 chance to get this a room, right? And I didn't want to go to the Bronx. And the director of this particular shelter that I was in told me, "You've been in the shelter for a very long time. This opportunity came up that has your name on it for you to go interview for. And at this point, Geraldine, if you don't take this, I don't know when another opportunity will come for you to get housed." So in other words, I had to go on the interview, and if I got accepted, I had to take the apartment. Get it? So my day came for the interview. The driver came too. So the driver drove me and my housing specialist to the Bronx. And the drive took a while for us to get there. It took a while for us to get there. So, when I was inside the car, I was very anxious, and then I was very upset because, I think we waited like a half an hour before even moving. Like they drove off from the shelter, but once we got in Manhattan, we got stuck. And then then we just got stuck, and I was like, why are we not driving? Like, let's move. And, it was very, aggravating for me because I wanted to interview, and I wanted to move out the shelter, and I wanted to see more than what I've been seeing living inside these women's shelters. So they drove me up finally to my destination. Oh, I was happy. Let's jump into the video. I like to keep my housing. So the office that I just left, her office is not uncommon, because whenever you have to take a psych evaluation, they do want you to do 6 months before they can do an evaluation. But the place that I went to, where I made the appointment, we're going to do it virtual. They're going to give me a psych evaluation online tomorrow, because I need it for where I live at. So now I want to show you something about this building. They got this lovely ceiling, girl. Let me show it to you. I think that's pretty. What do you think? Look at that ceiling. Oh my, look at that. And I don't even have on my glasses. I hope it's coming out good. I hope you're getting a good cover of it. Isn't that pretty? That's the ceiling. And you know what? The ceiling, let's check out the whole thing. Let's check out the whole thing. The ceiling matches the elevators. It's a pretty building. I love that kiosk system for their elevators. I think black people, black Americans, we get exploited in all kind of ways. And I'm going to bring it out on my YouTube channel. That's why I have a channel. Okay, so I'm going home now. We get to see vicariously how other people's lives are. And we get to see another side of when things just, not going right for someone. And don't forget, my channel is about when people fall. So if it's a different channel that you used to being by and seeing people do things because they already established, that's good. Not everybody's established. So my channel is about people who fell down. Now they picking their lives back up. I'm picking my life back up. And I'm doing it on camera. And tonight's video is going to show you when I finally got my first apartment after 18 years. And please don't forget to subscribe.